It's CapTV with Albert Cardbow, Grace Kamisic, Madison Easton, Isabella Shun, Jesse Shy, Jess Guy, Jonathan Williams, Jesse Adair, Molly Head, Wes Triplett, Stephen Taylor, Theodore Hadley.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to CapTV. I'm Madison, and today is all about LGBT plus pride. We have an amazing show here tonight with some LGBT plus history and an interview with Capital's Pride organization. But first, let's look at some LGBT plus history.
Hi, I'm Jesse, and welcome to my first and probably only history lesson. Sorry for the wind. It's too hot in my room to close my window, so yeah. So today, doing a history lesson, like I said, and we are going to be doing it on some general, overarching LGBT plus history. Yeah, I filmed the main part of this video like last night in the early AM, so who knows if this is coherent or not. So well, I'll decide, or you'll decide. Yeah, so let's get started. Our journey actually begins with the Greeks and the Romans, where some of the earliest known evidence of gay relationships were traced from, at least on records and stuff. In ancient Rome, especially, homosexuality was widely practiced and accepted, especially with men practicing it. Although it wasn't always socially acceptable, there were men in same-sex relationships, but others viewed it as something that was immoral or shameful. There weren't anything that was against or for gay rights in terms of laws or any type of legislation for that period, and everyone was just kind of vibing, you know. Then this thing, I don't know if you know what it is, but it's this tiny thing called Christianity. It kind of came into the picture for, I guess, both Greece and Rome, and just the world in general, and kind of just, ruined the vibe a little bit. Because of the rise of Christianity in Europe, there was also an increase of persecution of gay people. Yeah, because of this rise of Christianity in Europe, there was also a rise in persecution with LGBT plus individuals, such as being burned at the stake. However, in some cultures, like in some parts of Africa and Asia, homosexuality was pretty well accepted and celebrated. The 60s is often regarded as a huge decade in terms of change, namely with the civil rights movement, the space race, and the ever-looming potential of nuclear Armageddon. Said potential for everything and everything is endless, especially if it's a riot. So the Stonewall Inn, it's pretty much a speakeasy for LGBT individuals, namely those who are gay and trans. In the 60s, it was actually illegal to serve alcohol to someone who was an out homosexual, or at the very least was suspected of being one. June 28, 1969, that something started to act up. Stonewall was actually raided by the police, and initially they weren't too forceful. So some of the LGBT plus patrons at Stonewall were suddenly greeted with the police, specifically a police raid because of some potential homosexual activity. So the patrons that were there at Stonewall were surprisingly greeted with a police raid, just casually. The police were being annoying enough where the patrons that were there retaliated and just started a riot. Lasted over 6 days and was basically the key turning point of the massive explosion of the gay rights movement. The Stonewall Inn was basically the start of the modern LGBT plus movement, and like the one that's still going on today. In the early 80s, there were some reports that emerged of a mysterious illness affecting gay men in major cities of the U.S. The illness was later identified as AIDS, which was caused by HIV. The AIDS crisis had a devastating impact on the LGBT plus community. Many people living with HIV and AIDS were ostracized and left without support or resources, and medical professionals often refused to treat them. Responding to the crisis with activism, the 90s brought on some major progress in terms of treatment and prevention of HIV and AIDS. Organizations such as ACT UP and Queer Nation organized protests and demonstrations to demand better treatment and resources for people living with HIV or AIDS. The community also came together to provide care and support for those affected. The development of antiretroviral therapy, the disease from a death sentence to a manageable chronic condition. In addition, prevention. Some other prevention efforts, such as condom use and PrEP, have significantly reduced the spread. It also brought some solidarity to those who are affected. The AIDS crisis as a whole has a major and profound impact on the LGBT plus community in terms of loss and resilience. Because of the large amount of loss, that's pretty much an entire generation. And an entire generation of elder gays and elder trans people that younger like Gen Z LGBT individuals like myself just don't get to know. And the crisis also brought a new potential for bringing healthcare and general resources for LGBT plus people and others who are in marginalized groups. So, the 21st century brought a pretty significant amount of progress to LGBT plus rights, with many countries legalizing same-sex marriage and enacting anti-discrimination laws. I looked it up, and I think as recent as September of last year, Cuba legalized same-sex marriage, which honestly is great. There's still a ton of work being done to squash the LGBT community. I know as of recording this, a ton of states here in the U.S. are trying to criminalize or just make illegal in general of drag queens and drag shows for children, which honestly, to me, drag shows are great and literally don't harm anyone.
Welcome back. Wasn't that an amazing history lesson? Thanks, Jesse. Next up, we will be talking to Capital's very own LGBT plus organization, Pride, right after this break.
Phi Beta, I was quite shy. Phi Beta has given me some of the most amazing friendships I could have ever asked for. It's a really beautiful thing that people can use their different art forms together collaboratively and to make something really awesome. Phi Beta has helped me grow into a person I could have never imagined myself being a few years ago, and I am forever grateful.
Sleep. In the vocabulary of teens and adults, it's often overlooked. On average, college students should be getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep, yet statistics show that they actually get less than that. Lack of sleep can bring about negative physical and mental effects, such as impaired judgment, headaches and tension, stress, increased risk of medical problems such as heart attack and stroke, and breaking of the fourth wall. So do yourself a favor and get some sleep.
Welcome back. We are now with the President and Vice President of Pride, Dree and Sarah. So, can you tell us about your experience as someone who is LGBT+/queer?
Oh, we didn't. Okay.
Yeah. Either or, whoever wants to start.
Yeah, so, like, coming from a pretty rural high school into, like, a more accepting and diverse college group was really, I think, interesting as a queer person. Met a lot more queer people here at Capitol than I ever had before, and that was, like, pretty overwhelming at first, but, like, I'm so happy I, like, got involved in the community here and got to meet so many incredible people.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine is pretty similar. I also came from like a very rural high school, and I think the first people I met on campus were like the OLs that were all like LGBT in some way, and that was like really like reassuring to see, like coming into Capitol, that like, oh, there's a space for people like me here. So like.
Yeah, especially right off the bat and just starting into it. Like, you know, you come in and they're like, hey, and especially coming to a place that you don't know, because you can like relate to something like that. So that's really neat. So how has your experience changed over time?
I think I got more comfortable with being queer just by being around other people who are comfortable with being queer. Used to not really like talk about it a lot. People kind of had to force it out of me almost. Almost treating it like it was embarrassing or something. Now it's, you know, not like that at all.
Just in typical conversation.
Yeah, it's pretty casual now, and that's been, I think, the most notable difference of that, kind of unlearning those like compulsory heterosexuality like, kind of stuff over the last 4 years has been really, really important.
Yeah.
I have to agree. I don't really have much more to add than that.
Yeah, that's all right. So how can people outside of the LGBT plus community best support and advocate for the rights of LGBT plus individuals?
I think listening. When LGBTQ people say that they need something, you know, trans rights are under attack right now in so many states, including Ohio. Listening to the trans community, and listening to the LGBTQ community when we say that we need support, whether that's monetarily, whether that's coming to events, giving us like your voice or platform, whatever that specific situation calls for, just like willing to listen to that first before speaking.
I think also after like listening, like a lot of like people who don't know much about the LGBTQ community can have kind of like a knee-jerk reaction to like be incredibly confused and just shut down, or like just be stuck in like the way that they think is correct or whatever. And I think just working to like kind of stop the knee-jerk, like stop and just take a moment, there we go, and just like, it's not about me, it's not about what I like feel about this thing, it's about these people who need help, sort of, that sort of thing.
Yes, no, I agree. So what are some examples, both good and or bad, of LGBT plus figures, and is there anyone in fiction that who comes to mind for you?
I think the like first person I think of as a literature major is definitely Oscar Wilde. He is like a queer figure in literature, in media, that like people actually learn about in schools, and people actually like talk about in classrooms, which is really interesting. His works like Picture of Dorian Gray, Importance of Being Earnest, stuff like that is like taught here in literature classes, but in also other like classrooms, and that's such a battle, especially with everything going on right now with queer media in schools anyways.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, he had his, like, pitfalls. He was, you know, very long time ago should not be, you know, what we look to right now. But
Right.
he is a queer figure that people learn about, and I do think that that's important.
Yeah.
I think the first thing right now that I think of is Pose on FX with about like the drag scene in New York in the 80s, I want to say.
With Billy Porter.
Yeah, with Billy Porter, MJ Rodriguez, a lot of those
Yeah.
actors and actresses and
Awesome.
all that.
Well, thank you so much for being here. We will be taking a break, and we will be right back.
This is a Capital University public service announcement. No Hall Sports. It saves lives.
Welcome back. So we're going to have more questions for the President and Vice President of Pride. So the next question is, what do you think the future of the LGBTQ plus community looks like?
I think after specifically looking at the recent sorry.
Okay. Okay.
The recent like attack on like trans life and I think a lot of the people who are like trans youth now are gonna grow up and be so strong and like have no problem fighting anyone who will give them crap, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
I think it'll be very resilient and very like powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the future of the LGBTQ community is like really with the trans youth, with POC youth, and just kind of all of the legislative attacks that are happening right now. Like that's impactful, and that especially as a young person, they're going to grow up and be really strong leaders, and you know, hopefully they take that into all kinds of different realms, whether it's education, activism. Even political, you know, we need more queer people in office and stuff like that. So I really think it's going to move in a positive direction, even if it doesn't look like that right now. I mean, we've always persisted and we've always been resilient. So.
Yeah, thank you for that. So a little bit lighter, what's the funniest LGBT plus related story that you've heard or even experienced? Whether it be like a coming out story or one that's not that was funny or I don't
That's
know.
a good
Take
question.
some time to think. Dree, do you have any insight to anything?
I think my favorite coming out story I heard was, it was in high school, and there was like that meme on Tumblr where that girl came out to her parents with like a cake. And so my friend was like, oh, my parents are chill. I feel like I'm very obviously queer, so that'll be funny. I'll come out with a cake. And so they like made this cake, frosted it, iced it, said, I'm gay AF. And like their parents came home and they were like, surprise. And their parents were like, oh my gosh, why did you not tell? Like they like had like a very like, it wasn't a bad reaction. They were just like why didn't you tell us sooner? Like it was like, and it was like fine. It was like so funny at the time because she was like texting updates as it was happening.
Yeah, 100%.
I think the funniest LGBTQ related story.
It's okay if you don't have an answer.
Yeah, I really can't think of anything.
That's what would come to mind. It's okay. So we're going to be talking about media next. So, if you could pick any fictional character to be an LGBT plus icon, who would it be and why?
Ooh. I feel like the first thing that came to my mind was a classic from Rocky Horror Picture Show, Dr. Frankenfurter. I feel like they're very, yes. But I'm just gonna stick with that one.
That's okay, that works.
Tim Curry's timeless.
Great man.
I think the importance of Dairy Girls is cannot be understated. It's a well-written show. The
I love Dairy
representation
Girls.
is just it melds so perfectly with the plot line. I think that's really going to withstand the test of time, and I think that's definitely going to become iconic.
I really have to start watching that again then.
Oh, it's so good.
Absolutely.
Yes, I've got recommendations. So, really quickly, what's your favorite LGBT plus movie or TV show, and why do you love it?
Ooh.
I know this is a hard question for me. It'd take me 10 minutes.
That's
to
a good
figure that
one.
out.
Yeah.
Or even one that just comes to mind that meant a lot to you, even.
Probably Dairy Girls, because it's about teens in Ireland in the 1990s during the Troubles. And the one girl is a lesbian, but doesn't know how to tell her friends, doesn't know how to tell anyone, so she writes an anonymous story to the newspaper, and all of the friends are like, who is it, who could it be, and at the end of the episode she's like, it's me, or towards the middle she's like, it's me, and they're like, what, no, and at first they're not that accepting, but then they're they come full are fully accepting, are fully into the deep end with Claire. It's so cute. It's very heartwarming.
Yeah.
I really like Heartstopper, as basic of an answer as that is. It's just cute. It's fun to see queer media that's just cute, and I don't usually watch that kind of stuff. But my best friend showed it to me. It was you have to watch it, and sometimes the secondhand embarrassment. Because they're in middle school or whatever is a lot. However, it's very cute and it is a very relatable show. So
It's great. Yeah, well, we will definitely be talking about that more when we come back from the break. Thanks again for being here and for your insight.
Thank you for having us.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is John Kerr here at WXCU Radio, and today I'm playing my radio show where I play my own music on this station, which is really cool. You get to do that. And I get a bunch of feedback from callers coming in, and it really helps me with the overall mastering and other mixing aspects of the original final product. And it's a really great experience to be here, so you guys should really definitely think about joining it because it's awesome.
Here we go.
Welcome back to CapTV. I'm Madison again, and we are here with Sarah and Dree, and now we're going to have a discussion about representation in the media and what role it plays with how we see ourselves and seeing yourself on screen. So I'd just like to ask a really quick question, when was the first time that you saw yourself represented in any form of media, whether it be music or even a book, or even, and how that helped you discover who you are?
I feel like the first time I saw, I'm pansexual, and the first time I saw anyone adequately in a way that wasn't cringe, talk about that or show that was on Schitt's Creek.
I knew you were gonna say that.
With
Daniel Levy with the
yeah, and they're talking about wine and stuff, and I was like, oh, that's exactly that, and I literally used that to explain it to my mom, so that was cool.
Yeah, and I do know a lot of people say that to the actors too, and they're like, I literally use that to explain to people, and it just made sense.
I love that it's made that
I like the wine, not the label.
Yeah.
I think for me, probably the summer between sophomore and junior year of high school, I was here for a creative writing camp, and my best friend at the time, she was already out, as like queer. I was not out to myself, did not know. Everyone else knew. I had no idea. And so she was like, let's watch some like music videos from this artist I like. Their name is like Fletcher. And I was like, oh, okay. So we like sat there and we were like watching these music videos. I was like, wow, that's really cool that, you know, they're just themselves and they're so open about it. That's awesome. My friend was like, yeah, it is. Maybe you should think about it more.
Wow.
So it's like, yeah, I think about that a lot.
Which song was it, Fletcher?
I cannot remember. I think we watched like every music video that was out at that time, which I think was only like four or five music videos.
That was like a 20-minute activity.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, I think I really don't know when the first time I saw was that I like felt, I don't know, represented, but I know like my favorite show is called Winona Earp, and the queer couple in that show, like they have a lesbian and they have a bisexual
Waverly
woman.
and
Nicole.
Yeah,
Oh my
Nicole.
gosh.
Yeah.
They're like my favorite, and just the way that the coming out was handled, like it's just, it's not a big thing, and it's the most beautifully domestic queer relationship I ever saw at that point, and it really, I was in a bad place regarding like me and a partner and like really wanting a partner, and I was just like liking someone who wasn't really good for me in that way, and seeing that relationship on screen really made me love myself and see what was like the worth in myself, and seeing that, oh, if Waverly found Nicole, then I can find Nicole. Like it just it really solidified like hope for me instead of finding that in like heterosexual couples. Like I love Jim and Pam, but I didn't get that with Jim and Pam. I got that with Waverly and Nicole.
Well, it's so hard when like so many of the tropes surrounding queer couples or queer people aren't positive. Like there's the like trope of like the bisexual person who always cheats on their partner. There's the like kill your gays like trope and stuff like that. And so to see those positive relationships, it's very validating in a way that like I don't think we can get from heterosexual couples, because so much of society tells us that we are undeserving of that and that we don't deserve that. And so that's why that like kind of relationship on screen and media is just generally important to LGBTQ, not only like youth but people.
Very cool. Yeah, I don't know about you both, but I'm in my major because of representation and what I want to do for queer people and representation. I just had any questions like, what's like your goal for bringing that into whatever field that you're going into? Like, do you have any insight into that, or is there any passion that fueled that for you?
Yeah, I know. I'm a social work major, and one of my like focuses of people that I really wanted to work with was the LGBTQ community, because there is such like a need and for help, and hope. But I like long term would really like to make like a basically YMCA, but specifically for like LGBT kids. That's like way down the line.
Yeah.
But like, yeah.
Very neat. Very cool.
Yeah. I'm going to grad school for college student personnel, so a lot of like student affairs kind of things in higher education. And you know, when you come to college, like how we experience, you're unsure of the environment, you don't know if you're going to be accepted. Having those first interactions, because I'm really interested in orientation programming, so having those first interactions with your new environment, being inclusive and being positive and seeing people who you can relate to is super important. So really focusing on the inclusivity within orientation and then other student programming is so important, because I know
like
that
on the
really helped me.
surface of college too.
Yeah, it's like such a just like initial experience, and like you might not even realize how much it affects you at the time, but looking back, it's more impactful.
Well, thank you both so much for being here. I really appreciate you talking to me about this. This was a lovely discussion, and you are both very present on campus with the organization and in other ways too, which is amazing. So thank you so much for being here. And that is all that we have for you today. We hope that you had a great time watching the show, and thank you for watching CapTV. See ya next week.